and the melody, especially the chorus, sticks. And the art of that, it just happens. Like all these musicians.
Gene Simmons was not just a rock star. He was the fire-breathing face of Kiss, the man with the tongue, the makeup, the money, and the ego that filled every room. For decades, he sold the world a fantasy of power, fame, women, and control. But behind the stage smoke, another story kept following him. There were messy romances, crude interviews, lawsuits, public accusations, and moments that made people ask where the character ended and the real man began. Gene builds image on being untouchable, but as old stories resurfaced and new claims followed, that image became harder to protect in the public eye. Join us as we look back at Gene Simmons' rise, romances, scandals, and the allegations that still follow the man behind the demon. Before Gene Simmons became the demon, before Gene Simmons became the face of Kiss, before the makeup, the tongue, the fire, and the huge stage shows, he was a little boy named Chaim Witz. He was born on August 25, 1949 in Haifa, Israel, to Jewish refugees from Hungary. His story did not begin with fame, it began with survival. His mother, Flora Kovacs, later known as Florence Klein and Florence Lubowski, was born in Hungary and survived Nazi concentration camps. She was held from November 1944 until she was freed from Mauthausen on May 5, 1945. Out of her family, only she and her brother Larry survived the Holocaust. Gene's father, Fen Fariel Witz, was a carpenter. He married Florence in 1946, and they moved to Mandatory Palestine the next year. Jean spent his early childhood in Tiret Carmel in a practicing Jewish home. He later said his family was dirt poor, living on rationed bread and milk. At 7, he picked wild fruit with a friend and sold it on the roadside. That was not a game, that was survival. Then at 8, his parents divorced. His mother took him to the United States, and they settled in Queens, New York. His father stayed in Israel, and later had another son and 3 daughters. In America, Chaim Witz became Jacqueline, using his mother's maiden name. At 9, he briefly attended Yeshiva Torah Vodas, then moved to public school. He later graduated from Newtown High School, attended Sullivan County Community College, and earned a BA in education from Richmond College in 1970. But behind the grades and the new name was a boy who had already learned how harsh life could be. If the world was not going to give him power, he would have to build it himself. That early fear of being powerless explains much of the hunger that later showed up in his career. Gon did not talk like a man who wanted a quiet life. He talked like someone who remembered having nothing. The jobs, the Beatles, and the first big dream. Before music changed Gene's life, he worked normal jobs in New York City. That part of his story feels almost strange now, because the man people remember became one of the loudest faces in rock. But before all that, he was just trying to survive and move up. He was a strong typist and worked as an assistant to an editor at Vogue. He also spent 6 months as a 6th grade teacher on the Upper West Side.